thank you to the government of Kenya, to the county of Kisumu, and the United Cities and Local Governments, Africa, for hosting this important summit in the wonderful city of Kisumu. We are meeting in challenging times, marked by multiple interlinked crises and a proliferation of conflicts. At the same time, the world is in the midst of key transitions, from energy to the digital world. Among the emerging trendy lines, urbanization is a defining megatrend of the 21st century. We need to take advantage of it. The recent review of the new urban agenda provides insights into what a bottom-up approach to sustainable development in Africa could look like. Recognizing the centrality of the new urban agenda to other global agendas, notably our efforts to combat climate change. Acknowledging that COVID-19 has deepened inequalities and elevated the importance of cities. And addressing the gaps in capacities and financing countries face to achieve the sustainable urbanization. Africa is projected to have the world's fastest growing urban population over the next 30 years. Cities are producing more than 60% of GDP in Africa, and the rapid trend of urbanization across the continent offers new opportunities to accelerate economic and social transformations. Equitable, inclusive, and prosperous cities need to harness the full potential and participation of all citizens, especially women and our youth. The power of community action, especially youth action, which is our most important and dynamic human resource, can make a difference. While large and megacities will continue to attract people, effectively harnessing urbanization processes hinges on intermediary cities like Kisumu. Indeed, these cities must be at the heart of national urban strategies. Health emergencies, the climate crises, and conflicts are increasingly urban phenomena. Local governments in Africa must be provided with the means and the resources to confront these challenges and deliver on the Sustainable Development Goals. Successful implementation of the SDGs requires unprecedented ownership by local actors. Together with UCLG and other partners, the United Nations has launched a Local 2030 Coalition, a platform designed to support and accelerate SDG delivery at the local level. We invite all of you to join this effort. Acting together, we can leverage well-planned and well-managed cities as engines for sustainable development and innovation here and across Africa. I thank you.
In our classification of 2021 that has been issued for this summit is rated, I think, third or fourth, meaning you are at the upper level of the most friendly to the local people as a government. We thank you for that. We thank you also to have accepted to come to Kisumu. This is the first time an Africities Summit is organized in what we call an intermediary city. We wished to send a clear message that the reality of our continent is reflected in the way we treat our intermediary cities. Treat them well, and we will treat African citizens well. Treat them bad, and you will harvest problems in our state and government. We are happy we are treating them well, and we hope that besides you, you have the President of African Union Commission who's listening, and we want you to be our champion. By him, to have intermediary cities are your key target of governance. All the African people pouring in capital cities is trouble for you. People remaining in the countryside is a benefit for everyone. But the countryside should be part and parcel of our states, of our continent. And this should be translated into bringing to them what they deserve the most. basic services, education, health, water, energy, day-to-day living conditions. You do that, Mr. President, you do that, Mr. Ministers, means that you empower the people to take charge of themselves. Africities is all about that, a conversation to empower the people to take charge of themselves and to rebuild self-esteem. Therefore, start the difficult journey for development. I am certain that you share our views, and I'm certain that we support it. And I'm certain that Africities in Kisumu will be a landmark in the history of this continent. I thank you.
President, you show once more your leadership and dedication for Kenya and for the implementation of African Union Agenda 2063. And thank you for encouraging me to speak English. I would like to congratulate the United Cities and Local Government of Africa, the Government of the Republic of Kenya, governors of Kenya and the Kisumu County Government for the unprecedented organization of the summit and the warm hospitality extended to us. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the African Union embraces the theme of this summit of Africities, of the role of intermediary cities in the implementation of Agenda 2030 of the United Nations and Agenda 2063 of the African Union. Intermediary cities have a crucial role on urbanization policy and have become a renewed subject of interest for governments, international organizations, and academics. Intermediary cities are growing fast and have the greatest potential to shape the urban future, and yet they are often overlooked. Much attention has been paid to capital cities, which are the political, social, and economic centers of a country. As a result, our economies fail to realize the benefits that a more balanced spatial development and intercity collaboration can generate. The growth of intermediary cities implies an increase in wealth, inequalities, need for housing, infrastructure and urban services, pollution, need for decent jobs, increased waste production, and therefore, the role needs to be recognized and clarified. If left alone to manage themselves without a clear role, cities will manifest into chaotic development. Cities have their unique challenges and potentials. Therefore, clarification of their role should take into consideration their peculiarities. Ladies and gentlemen, I am particularly pleased to see that the summit has chosen the theme linking the global UN agenda to Africa's agenda as a template of how to think global while acting locally to African aspiration and distinct cultural realities. Africa, like the rest of the world, has committed itself to the implementation of the United Nations agenda and the new urban agenda. Furthermore, the continent's agenda 2063 outlines not only our aspiration for the future, but also identifies key flagship programs which can boost Africa's economic growth and development and lead to the rapid transformation of the continent. The three agendas have powerfully captured the role of cities and their envisioned cities that fulfill their social, economic, ecological, and political function in an inclusive manner. At the continent level, the African Union has developed a regional framework for the implementation of the new urban agenda. The AU has developed also the African Charter on Values and Principles of Decentralization, Local Governance, and Local Development to facilitate implementation of decentralization, which remains a challenge in many countries. This instrument serves as a sound foundation for guiding the development of our cities, as well as clarifying your role as local authorities in intermediary cities. With your experience and key role as mayors and governors, it is now up to you to make sure that these valuable tools become an integral part of your urban management to ensure the decentralization and urbanization we want. As you deliberate here on the shores of Lake Victoria, which is both a trade route, transnational water highway for cities beyond Kisumu, it is also a reminder of the impacts of climate change on our lives and livelihoods. I also want to remind you that regional integration is a fundamental objective of Agenda 2063. The African Free Trade Area Agreement, AFCFTA, can be seen in action here in Kisumu, a vibrant city that trades with neighboring counties and countries, facilitating the free movement of goods and people for the shared prosperity far beyond the shores of Lake Victoria.
Mr. President and Your Excellency, let me take this opportunity to thank the organizers who have worked very hard with the support of many young people in the city of Kisumu to make this summit possible. I always look forward to meeting young people, especially women and girls, whose future is intimately tied to the United Nations Human Settlement Agenda. When a young child born this year celebrates her 18th birthday, she will join other Africans in building an urban future. More likely than not, it will be in an intermediate city. By 2050, 50% of all Africans will live in urban areas. She will be among the additional 1.4 billion people that will be born or will migrate to urban settlement. And this, I would like also to try to imagine that what future will be like for our young women and young boys born in 2022 today. Today, more than 64% of the urban population in Africa live in informal settlements. There is a deficit of housing and housing finance, with only 15% of urban dwellers in Africa able to afford to purchase their own homes. Depending on where our young lady is born, it will be a major battle to get a job, own a home, and start a family. This is the urban future she will have if we do nothing to change the urban agenda in Africa. What is the role of the intermediate cities? Your Excellency, Mr. President, I would like to recognize your contribution to Africa and the people of Kenya, your foresight and investment made by the government of Kenya in housing, infrastructure, industry, and job creation will be felt many decades to come. You have successfully created an abode of peace and development in East Africa, a model for a continent and the rest of us in the developing world. Congratulations to you, Mr. President. Thank you for taking the initiative to host this important summit during the unprecedented times when the world is experiencing the effect of what
Quand on est en train de le fier
This perfect storm is increasing the social economic vulnerability of cities, often overlook our intermediate cities. Too small to be made a national priority, but not big enough to be independently resilient. Kenya, under your leadership, is showing the way to foster closer cooperation and resource allocation between national and local government. This is helping to deliver resources to communities most in need. In the last 50 years, the United Nations in Africa have contributed to ensuring that urban communities have had greater access to basic services, transport infrastructure, and now digital connectivity. Our engagement with more than 30 countries in Africa has given us opportunities to foster collaboration with both national and local governments towards prosperous, safe, and resilient cities in Africa, with the support of the development of national urban policies in 20 countries in Africa. I would like to appreciate the collaboration with the government of Kenya at both national and country level in the sector of housing, physical planning, promoting resilience for the urban poor, waste management, and on the Blue Economy initiative for coastal cities planning being jointly carried out by UN Habitat and UNEP to boost the circular economy with the financial support of the European Union. I cannot overemphasize our great collaboration with Kisumu County on the lakefront development, on municipal revenue enhancement, and on local economic development for long-term recovery from COVID-19. And I believe the new United Nations Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework under leadership of the UN Resident Coordinator will foster further collaboration with the government of Kenya and will offer an opportunity to the whole UN family to accelerate the Sustainable Development Goals in Kenya.
It's fitting that you are all gathering some 6 months before Egypt will host COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, and that you'll focus the world's attention on the tremendous risks and opportunities ahead for Africa's growing cities of all sizes. I'm particularly grateful that you're shining a light on the role subnational actors can and frankly must play in the climate fight. Local leaders and community groups have always helped lead us forward on this issue, ever since I can remember being part of helping to organize the first Earth Day in 1970. And that is why, in the Paris Agreement at COP26 in Glasgow and elsewhere, the world has recognized the critical role that you must continue to play in this fight. Here in Africa, you see the urgency of this moment. You're living it. You know the world is simply not moving fast enough to avoid the worst consequences of the climate crisis and to hold the global temperature rise within the 1.5 degree limit. We're simply not getting this job done globally in the way that we ought to be. And you also know that you and your citizens are all on the front lines of the crisis. 17 of the world's 20 most climate vulnerable countries can be found in Africa. And that's the case even though 48 nations in sub-Saharan Africa are responsible for only 0.55% of total emissions. The most recent IPCC report told us the climate crisis is already here. You already knew that because you lived through it. Extreme heat waves, devastating droughts, changing planting seasons, and more punishing storms. But here's the good news. The IPCC also told us that we still have time to secure a cleaner, healthier, safer planet for all of us. That work starts here in Africa with the world's fastest growing populations and economies. Our climate crisis is also an opportunity to seize smarter growth and better jobs. Take adaptation as an example. Preparing people for this warmer world can save lives and livelihoods, but it's also just plain old common sense. Roads, bridges, and ports can only spur economic growth and reduce poverty next year if they are built to survive the storms of tomorrow. Critical efforts are already underway in Africa, from Rwandan farmers using more accurate forecasting to Tunisian ports preparing for rising seas and flood risks. To support the adaptation work we have to engage in, at COP26, President Biden announced his President's Emergency Plan for Adaptation and Resilience. It's known as PREPARE. PREPARE brings together our diplomatic, development, and technical expertise to help more than 500 million people, including many millions in Africa, manage the impacts of the climate crisis by 2030. When it comes to finance, President Biden also pledged last year to quadruple U.S. international public climate finance to over $11 billion per year by 2024. And the private sector is finally showing up with the money that we need to invest in order to accelerate this transition, including in Africa, where multi-trillion-dollar industries are being created. In all of this work, we will continue to follow your lead. Over 1,000 cities and local governments, including many of Africa's major urban centers, have now committed to the Race to Zero and Race to Resilience campaigns. From strengthening green buildings in Cape Town to building water resilience in Addis and Kigali, you are showing us what is both necessary and possible. My friends, we know that human choices have caused this crisis, and therefore we know that human choices can put us back on the right path. That is exactly what you are helping to do today. So on behalf of President Biden and the entire United States government, thank you for your partnership, your friendship, and most of all, your leadership and your dedication to this effort. We are going to win this fight. And when we do, it will be because of leaders like you in Africa and across the planet. Thank you.
Pleasure to stand before you on behalf of the Council of Governors and on behalf of the 47 county governments. This is not the first time that Kenya is hosting the Africities Summit, having hosted in 2006 under the auspices of the now defunct local governments. Indeed, county governments are proud that the summit has been convened in an intermediary city that is within a county. This honor, ladies and gentlemen, is testament that the intermediary cities of Africa are receiving attention, and there is recognition that they play a critical role in achievement of global agenda. I convey a warm thank you to His Excellency, our President Uhuru Kenyatta, the President of the Republic of Kenya, and Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, the Governor of Kisumu County, for taking up the mantle to host delegations from all over Africa during this entire week. I also wish to extend my appreciation to the United Cities and local governments of Africa for the immense support they have accorded to Kenya to deliver this conference. Ladies and gentlemen, the theme of this summit is clear to you all. I don't want to repeat it, but it resonates well with Kenya's Vision 2030, which prioritizes sustainable urbanization through ensuring the country's population is provided with adequate decent housing in well-planned urban areas. Your Excellencies and distinguished guests, one of the most significant changes in the world, and particularly in Africa in recent times, and one that seems to be of even greater importance, is the future and the rapid growth that we are seeing at the moment. It is estimated by the year 2050, a majority of the African population will be living in urban cities. Therefore, rapid urbanization means that governments at the central and local levels must rethink and re-engineer urban governance if this phenomenon is to be well managed. Building the resilience of our major cities and urban areas against the shocks of fast-paced migration and burgeoning populations, and investing in the growth of intermediary cities is a delicate balance that African governments must address. To address these challenges and to tap into dividends of urbanization, Kenya developed the National Urban Development Policy in 2016. The policy envisions a secure, well-governed, competitive, and sustainable urban areas. The policy is crucial in ensuring the country remains in the path of implementation of SDG on making cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Further, to implement the commitments of the African Agenda up to 2063. Your Excellencies, let me now turn to issues that relate to our subnational government. Kenya adopted a new constitution in 2010, which created a devolved system of government comprising national government and 47 county governments. With a devolved system of governance, Kenya has experienced positive economic growth and development across the country. In Kenya, county governments play an integral role in the urban agenda, as they are charged with managing urban areas and cities. Further, county governments are the generators of spatial plans and development plans that are aimed at promoting evidence-based decision-making. Earlier this year, Nakuru County became the fourth county to have a city after Nakuru County received a charter of elevation to city status by our president. Kisumu, of course, had been given their status much earlier. And as county governments, we thank our national government and our president. Ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, I wish to call upon the delegates in this summit to reflect on the following. 1, the need to explore non-traditional financing options for cities and urban areas in the wake of dwindling central government and donor support. Second, the need to formulate urban policies, laws, strategies, and action plans aimed at building the resilience of our cities and urban areas. Third, the need to strengthen the capacities of the leadership of cities and urban areas. Fourth, the need to address the increasing urban poverty and inequalities in line with SDG's relying call of leaving no one behind. Fifth, the need for our cities to adopt technologies that are climate smart. Sixth, the need to strengthen data management and promote SDG voluntary local review mechanism to document progress in implementation and to ensure that locals get involved in decision making. Seventh and finally, the need to develop an African blueprint to guide infrastructural development in cities and urban areas as we are becoming more and more together.
This city has a great history, like other cities in Africa, in Europe, and across the world. It has a long history that stretches back to the Victorian era. We had two Englishmen who came here in 1858, Speke and Barton, and they said they had discovered Lake Victoria, and they named it after their queen. Before they came, the community living here, the Luo community, called Lake Victoria Namlo Lue. The Luyas lived here, they called it Enyanja ya Walude. When you go to the Rwandese, they call the lake Nyanza. But Speke and Barton came and said they were the first people to discover Lake Victoria, and they named it after their queen. That is how Lake Victoria came to be. The second thing that happened was the British now came in to open up the hinterland of Africa to connect the port of Mombasa and the port of Kisumu. And this is one lesson we want to take away as Africa, the importance of infrastructure in developing intermediary cities, in growing intermediary cities. Indeed, Kisumu grew as an accident, and it came out of a huge debate in the British Parliament when Henry Loballoch called this a gigantic folly. Building a train from Mombasa to Kisumu looked like an impossibility then. In 1896, they started. And it was opposed by the British Parliament. But it went on through a lot of challenges. Winston Churchill came and said, This was not a folly. In fact, it was a brilliant conception. And it was an art of the British tradition of muddling through things. So they muddled through a lot of politics back home to get on the ground. There were lions who were man-eaters in Savo. They muddled through the Savo. They had tsetse-fly attacks, a lot of disease. They muddled through it. They went through ravines, valleys, faced the Maasai warriors, very fierce Nandi warriors. But they muddled through it, and by 1901, they arrived here in Kisumu. It was then called Port Florence. As we speak today, this is one of the most transformative infrastructure developments in Africa. We are happy that after our president took over, we have continued to invest as national government in this infrastructure. We have a standard gauge railway that has been built during this administration, all the way from Mombasa. It's now in Naivasha. It will come to Kisumu. We know that it was not easy to do that, but again, we are transforming this city because of that infrastructure. Investing in ports, as Musa Faki has said, it's about ports, it's about roads, it's about the rail, it's about water infrastructure. And this is one lesson we want to take away as we look at the future of intermediary cities in our continent to transform it. So I want to thank you. There will be many sessions where we want to share experiences about our journey in devolution, about the success of decentralization in this country. There are many breakaway sessions, there are many delegations that we have engaged. Please take your time, let us engage, share experiences, and learn from each other. Let us also look at how we can look at the challenges facing us, how we can overcome these challenges, and how we can address the vulnerabilities that are going to face our populations as they move into their cities. Experts are saying by 2050, we'll have over 60% of our populations in these intermediary cities. So we must prepare for that. And the role of intermediary cities in realization of the AU Agenda 2063 and the EU Agenda 2030 is at the center of our discussions today. Please let us share, but also take time to enjoy the beautiful lake out there, Lake Victoria. It's the biggest tropical lake in Africa and the second largest freshwater lake in the world after Lake Superior.
Today, Your Excellencies, as we reflect on the theme of the 9th edition of the Africities Summit, to what extent can we declare confidently that we are on course in implementing the two agendas, one for the UN, one for the AU, both related and complementary? Fully aware that both the UN and AU declarations will only matter to the African people when they have a positive impact on their lives, we meet here today, Your Excellencies, to review the extent to which we have implemented them and what is yet to be done. In Kenya, Your Excellencies, we began doing this when Kenyans approved a new constitution in 2010, introducing devolution in our governance under the presidency of Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta. Today, the devolution project has replaced fear of exclusion at the grassroots with participation and involvement in decision-making. In intermediary cities like Kisumu, plenty of evidence is already available regarding the dividends of devolution. Intermediary cities also have the potential to address inequalities among groups that have arisen from central power structures that disproportionately channel resources to few urban areas. Countries like South Africa have not only entrenched devolution, but have also devolved key public functions to other cities. Cape Town houses their parliament. Pretoria is where the executive sits, while Johannesburg is the business center. Apart from its well-established federal system, Nigeria has developed Abuja as its capital city, leaving Lagos largely as a place for business. Tanzania, though largely governed with a central structure, has Dodoma as the seat of its parliament, leading to its growth and development, while Dar es Salaam remains largely a commercial and industrial center. This summit delivers the policy challenges that emerge are designing constitutional frameworks that are sensitive to, but not trapped in, elite political relations that usually encourage divisions within the nations on a tribal basis. Devolution offers an answer that emphasizes both individual liberty and community values by empowering local communities within their own local government, elected by them and kept in check by them. This is the essence of democracy and democratic decision-making for equitable development. Your Excellencies, in that spirit of the importance of government, the United States, the local government of Africa, was established.
We are convening here at a very unique time in the history of our region and the world, and our efforts to build our economies back from the devastating effects of COVID-19 pandemic have been slowed by a myriad of events on the international scene, events which in many circumstances have put multilateralism as we know it under immense stress. However, I do believe that this summit reaffirms our resilience and our shared common goal as brothers and sisters within the African continent of making our towns, our cities, and indeed our metropolitan areas better. We have amongst us delegates from approximately 110 countries from all over the world. And I believe that this is a summit not just of thinkers, but also of doers. And we are therefore called upon to bring tangible, practical, and sustainable solutions to the challenges facing Africa's urban areas. Recognizing that this noble goal is not a task solely for governments, we also have amongst us members from civil society organizations, representatives of our African diaspora, economic actors, policy experts, researchers, academicians, financial institutions, as well as development partners. These diverse actors all share in our objective of strengthening the role of local and regional governments in the development of our continent, as well as accelerating the integration and unity of Africa by creating linkages between nations and cities on our continent. So on behalf of the people of Kenya, I am particularly grateful to the leadership of the United Cities and local governments of Africa for choosing Kisumu as a host city for this year's Africities Summit, the first such intermediary city to host such a conference. For centuries, this particular intermediary city of Kisumu has been a melting pot of different cultures, a hub for trade, and a gateway into Eastern and Central Africa. And so in this context, I do invite you all to join in this continental moment of taking stock and reflecting, learning, as well as planning under this year's theme of the role of intermediary cities of Africa in the implementation of our Agenda 2030 of the United Nations and our very own African Union Agenda 2063. This year's summit is most apt as the summit comes at a time that is critical when our continent of Africa is facing rapid urbanization and the challenges of future cities are increasingly coming into sharp focus, more so after the shocks of the COVID-19 pandemic. Cities and local authorities around the world have played a key role in the response to COVID-19. They were our first line of defense. They were at the forefront of our prevention and containment measures, the vanguard of our humanitarian response, as well as taking the first steps towards building back livelihoods post-COVID. Local authorities therefore proved to be an indispensable ring in the governance chain and an instrumental part of pandemic prevention and response actions. Consequently, time is ripe for scaling up the role of intermediary cities as the next frontiers of African urbanization and development. I say this because in Africa, an unprecedented rate of urbanization has propelled intermediary cities to stand at approximately 1,086. These intermediary cities like Kisumu, where we are today, are home to approximately 174 million people, representing about 36% of our continent's total urban population and contributing about 40% of our continent's GDP. So as we convene to deliberate on how we can establish a shift towards a new urban paradigm and unleash the potential of intermediary cities in fostering inclusive development and the realization of our SDGs and all other social economic development initiatives, we must keep in mind that Africa is becoming increasingly urbanized. The traditional rural focus within development plans risk marginalizing a growing section of our population, one which will soon be the majority. This is not to say that our rural areas should take a back seat. Rather, it is to recognize that our development plans must be in tune with the realities of rural-urban migration and the concentration of large populations in small and often unplanned settlements in metropolitan areas. This calls for proper planning to create smart cities that meet future urbanization challenges, plans that address the emerging needs related to food security, health, shelter, environmental conservation, as well as infrastructure. The need for proper urban planning was clearly demonstrated during the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic, when it became necessary to support those living in informal settlements in our cities and urban areas with food rations, as well as the provision of sanitary facilities. So, ladies and gentlemen, the challenge of our time is therefore to make our intermediary cities and municipalities sustainable and fit for all our citizens. Accordingly, this summit has the task of providing the continent with a comprehensive and achievable roadmap on how our intermediary cities can contribute towards the implementation of the Agenda 2030 of the United Nations, as well as our own African Union Agenda 2063. Here in Kenya, for example, the national government has over the last 5 years been implementing projects and programs geared towards improvement of lives of our people through the achievement of the SDGs. This has been under the auspices of our National Economic Blueprint, our Kenya Vision 2030 and its medium-term plan, the Big Four, and the agenda espouses provision of a decent roof over many more heads at affordable costs, at affordable health care for all, value addition by increasing manufacturing and jobs, as well as ensuring food security for all our people. We have also embarked on a slum upgrade program that is spread across our country, notably in our capital city of Nairobi and the intermediary cities of Mombasa and Kisumu, as well as our youngest city, that being the city of Nakuru. These concerted actions have been through the Kenya Devolution Support Program, the Urban Support Program, the Kenya Slum Upgrade Program, and the Kenya Informal Settlement Improvements Program. So to achieve the goals of this convention, we must make this, the 9th edition of the Africities Summit, a questioning summit. And in that regard, I would like to propose a 12-point questioning framework for all participants. And this framework should guide us in understanding the problem and charting the way forward. Firstly, how do we reinvigorate the management of urbanization, the electricity feed, provide affordable and inclusive transport, provide high quality and accessible education and healthcare, and improve the standards of water and sanitation provision within our intermediary cities? Secondly, how do we accelerate the reduction of extreme poverty in our cities? Third, how can national and central governments support in mobilization of resources to unlock effective delivery of services by our intermediary cities? Fourth, how can we best develop human capital in the intermediary cities in the sectors of administration, planning, and governance with a view to sustaining the momentum so far gathered towards the achievement of our SDGs? Fifth, what is the best way for us to create and sustain conducive environments for the accelerated growth of decentralization and devolution across our continent without compromising our national cohesion? Sixth, how do we reposition technology and connectivity as a driver to the achievement of SDGs in providing opportunities in our urban areas? Seventh, how can we enhance the voice of key stakeholders, including civil society, the private sector, academia, grassroots organizations, in providing capacity and impetus in the implementation of our SDGs? 8, how do we increase awareness of the negative effects of climate change and guarantee environmental equity for future generations? 9, what legal and policy frameworks should we establish so as to foster the robust and sustainable development of intermediary cities? And 10, what incentives should we put in place to enhance the competitiveness of our intermediary cities as the new frontiers and hubs for innovation, trade, and tourism? 11, what critical steps can we put in place to enhance disaster management in our urban areas, including those that may deal with pandemics similar to COVID-19? And 12, as we scale up and develop our urban areas in general, and in particular our intermediary cities, what strategies and policies are required to confront the threats of radicalization and terrorism, especially in the urban areas, including our intermediary cities? So, ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude my remarks, I would like to underscore that this must be a decade of action. The time is ripe for scaling up our efforts in support of intermediary cities and also in promoting greater synergies between local, national, and international efforts geared towards accelerating the realization of our SDGs. In every community and nation in Africa, there are sayings that recognize that in unity there is strength, and there is no challenge no matter how seemingly insurmountable, can prevail over unified and united actions. I therefore urge all of you today to unite in the face of one of the greatest challenges of our time, and I have no doubt that through concerted and synergetic actions, Africa's intermediary cities will play their rightful role in driving the implementation of Agenda 2030 and the African Union Agenda 2063. So, ladies and gentlemen, with those few remarks, it is indeed my great pleasure and honor to declare this 9th AfriCities Summit officially open, and I really look forward to the fruitful deliberations that I'm sure will take place here in this great city of Kisumu. Thank you, and God bless Africa. Thank you very much.